Hello and welcome. I'm here with Anil Patel, and he's the founder of Virtual Manager. Here we are talking about business success, what it takes to grow a business, things like getting funding, going global, things like that. So I just think just to go back to the start of your journey, do you want to talk me through how you sort of got to where you are now from a funding and investment and expansion perspective?
Yeah. So basically the business was co-founded with myself and Neil, and Neil's the technical brains and I kind of ran the business side. So when we started the business, we didn't really, I know this sounds a bit silly, but we didn't really have a great plan, in that we knew that we knew that we knew stuff, we knew that we could build tech, and we knew there were a lot of problems in various industries. So the first challenge was working out, well, which industries do we go for, which ones are lucrative, and how can we kind of sustain that? So we kind of then worked out that any industry that was kind of recession proof, we went for. So whether the oil industry, food industry, and then healthcare, we felt was pretty much recession proof, and that definitely proved to be correct. And we had some money because we'd built some consulting revenue before, we'd done some development work, so we did have money. But initially what we didn't realize was the length of time to close a sale in software was, in healthcare, 0 to 18 months.
Yeah, wow.
In food, probably 0 to 12 months, and the oil industry, 0 to 36 months and probably longer. So we really struggled with that. And even though we had good leads, good opportunities, how did we sustain even being alive? Because we were, we literally left good corporate jobs, had no money, or a little bit of, savings and stuff. So it was around how do we supplement that stuff. So we were doing consulting on the side, building that up. And then we realized, well, we can't be half pregnant. We're either in this full time or we're not, because when we were consulting, we weren't doing, when we were doing, we weren't consulting. So we then went out to the market and thought, well, who do we ask? So we went the traditional route, friends, family. And I think we raised 500,000 to start with, and I think we managed to get 50, 100, for about 5 different people. So that was our first, foray into raising capital. But at that point, we had a business turning over probably about half a million to 750. So it wasn't like we had nothing. So we burned through that 500 pretty quickly. And then thought, right, if we're going to be serious about America, what do we need to get there? So we had a bit of a budget. We worked out that maximum we needed was about 1.5 million. Probably could get away with 1. And then we reached out to VCs, banks, and high net worths. And the first pitch we did was to a high net worth. He was very interested in the business. He was ex-oil industry. He gave us the 1.2 or 1.3 that we needed, and that was pretty much how we started.
With that first round, what sort of percentage did you give away?
That's a really good question. It was pure equity, and I think we managed to have a valuation in those days of about 3.5, 4. So we didn't give away a huge amount, but everybody felt that they got a decent stake from their side, and we were happy with obviously the funds and what it was going to mean to them. Once we then took that money, we did grow the revenue side significantly. So we were then able, on the 1.3 raise, valuation was about 13 million. So again, we didn't kind of kill ourselves on dilution. So that kind of worked quite nicely. And that's one piece of advice that somebody gave me was, if you don't need to raise, don't. And raise once, raise properly, and then don't keep raising unless you absolutely have to. So, and we never raised anything after that, 12 years ago, that 1.3.
Well, I think, like that confuses a lot of people in terms of what raising means and what percentages go. Like I spoke to one guy who basically gave away almost 80%, and it was like friends and family, the first round, and he pretty much didn't have control of his company. Not that these people were going to take over and run it, but that was his runway, and he'd given away so much percentage of his company, it was virtually no room for anyone else in the future. I know that you talk like option pools, and you might set aside 10% for key staff and things like that. But a lot of times when people are taking funding, they'll go, 20% here, 20% there, 30% there. At some point, what's left? and I know you get dilution, like you add a ton more capital, then it kind of creates a bigger pie for everybody, and that percentage comes down, but so too does everybody else's. So
Yeah.
it's a very hard calculation on the fly. Do you have any like tips or ways to do
Yeah,
that?
I would say that it's exactly as you mentioned, in that you can get diluted very quickly, and equity is easier to give away than anything else. And people,
Yeah.
I think, get quite blasé with it and say,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to give away 5%. Well, 5% could be a lot. And
Yes.
that's what people don't realize.
Yeah.
So I think I probably wasn't too dissimilar in the beginning, in that we were giving away equity, but we tied it to performance. So if they didn't perform or didn't deliver what they say they were going to, they didn't get that percentage.
Yeah.
So we found that worked well, in that people then became, I guess, were held to task a little bit, but
Yeah.
they people are not incentivized, and with objectives they don't generally deliver, in my view. So
Yeah.
that helped. But I think there's other vehicles now that can help in that finance. So things like safe notes or convertible notes. With some of the startups I work with now, I generally would advise do a con note. You get to see what that individual is like. You're paying them back interest, and then
Yeah.
that have an option where you can convert that to equity. If they're happy, you're happy, and you feel they add value on
Yeah.
both sides. So that's one of the challenges that I think a lot of founders go through, and who to take money from.
Yeah.
In my view, a 1% shareholder is as noisy as an 80% shareholder. You don't want 10, 20 of the 1%ers to just,
No.
and I think you need to be very prescriptive over how many times you're going to meet, how often they can contact you, what they can ask you, and what you're going to respond with. And I know it seems silly, but at the beginning, I just became a shareholder voice box, in that
Yeah.
all I was taking was shareholder calls, and
Takes so
I
much
thought it was
time.
cool. Everyone's asking me questions, but like, you're just wasting time. So I'm there to run the business, not to tell you when you're getting your return back or what, just to chew the fat. So I think in hindsight, it's one of the things that we work with the founders and say, right, if it's a meeting a month, it's a meeting a month. And outside of that, you're not emailing me, you're not calling me, and not to be rude or disrespectful, but you're there to run the business. You're not there to answer your questions. So
Yeah.
that's the other part. And the other part is to really get to know the investor. Take them out to dinner, see how they react in a social environment, because you pretty much work it out. And my old adage is, if they play golf, take them to play golf. You can work out how an individual is 100% after a round of golf.
If they're
Whether
swearing at the golf ball, maybe
correct.
that's it.
If they're throwing their clubs, they're getting aggressive, if
Yeah.
they cheat, if
Yeah.
they don't stop talking. Now, they're just things you pick up, but you can
Yeah.
generally work out someone's personality after that, and how they are, and how calm they are,
Yeah.
how friendly they are.
That triggers two thoughts. One, I want to go into a recent experience of mine, but before I do, I want to talk more about like share types. Like, you got your A class, B class, C class shares, etc. What typically would you say, or does that not, you don't have a specific, it comes down to the agreement, right?
Look, it does. And again, initially, I gave everybody a preference,
Yeah,
which
right.
was probably not a good thing. So I ended
Voting
up having to
shares.
rechange,
Yeah.
and you can be very, you can still have A-class shares with voting rights, non-voting rights, but again, be very prescriptive on, okay, you can give everyone the same class of share, but you'll probably want to ensure that you've obviously got support, 51%.
Yeah.
And if you want people to vote, you've got the right people voting, because I offered everything to everyone, and then you end up with decisions by committee, and it becomes a nightmare. So
I think just quickly for anyone listening, we talk a little bit about, A-class shares is your voting share. That's like that's what you would hold as you create the company. There's like, multiple types of shares. You can create new types of shares with new rules. So you might give B-class shares to people that can't vote. You might give C and D and E and F if you want to segregate who you give dividends to when. And then, of course, you've got management shares, which have double the voting rights of an A-class share. Anyway, just thought that was a worthwhile distinction. So, getting into a recent experience that I had, and to your point about, exactly building that relationship really early on, I think is so critical. I met with this person, they said that they did funding and M&A and all that for MSPs. I get in the call, it was like a 30-minute call, and I'm curious. I just want to have conversations. I'm not really thinking about it at the moment, but it's good to know where people are, what they think about, who's in that space, because it's better to build the well before you need the water. So if you have those contacts early on, when it comes to actually needing funds, you now don't have to sift through and find somebody from the ether out in the
Yes.
world. Anyway, so this guy, we jump on and he's like, so where do you want to be? And, like as a founder, you think of some lofty vision. All right, I want to get to, $300 million in 10 years. And he's like, right, so that's going to be $30 million per 10 years. That's unrealistic. I'm like, well, you asked me where I wanted to be. I came in this conversation to figure out where we're at. I hadn't sat down with the calculator and go exactly how we're going to do this. Like, I think if you're going to ask someone's lofty vision, that's one thing. If you go, do you have a business plan that maps out from here to there? I'm like, well, you need both, right? You need your crazy wild ass goal, and you need your like, all right, actually we can achieve this, and if we go better, awesome. Part of the big vision is to kind of lead the people, and it's to sell the bigger thing. Like that's your job as a founder. Anyway, so he kind of started berating me about that, and I'm like, well, I was hovering over the end meeting button, and then towards the end, I spoke back to him. I'm like, listen, I don't need investment. I'm not here because I'm holding my hat in my hand looking for money. I'm here to have a conversation and find out where you're at, what you do. I have a big network. Maybe one day I might need it. But for now, I'm building a relationship.
Yeah.
And his approach was, I think he sort of changed his tone after I kind of met him where he was at. But there are definitely some people that try to, rapidly gain control and try to force the founder into subservience. And I don't think that's a smart place to be in.
Not at all. No, you're exactly right. And you did the right thing by kind of pushing back and saying, well, you don't know anything about me or my vision or how I'm going to do it. How on earth
you haven't spent time to figure it out. Yeah.
No.
What if you've got an awesome vision? What if you've got an awesome project, product or whatever, but you haven't got the spiel like nailed, or maybe that's not my strength, or, again, I wasn't trying to pitch.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I find that your experience is common in that I think mine is very similar in that when we started that journey outside of the family and friends, it was quite a negative view.
Yeah.
And I think still in Australia in particular, it is like that. And whether it's because the community isn't as established as it is in the US or the UK, or, you've now got all these experts that have watched Dragon's Den or Shark Tank, and they ask this, and it's just like, and I've been there. I had a founder, brilliant founder, who this was his first ever pitch. And I brought him to a group of high net worth. There was some kind of cohort managers and well connected. His pitch was incredible. And he just got hammered.
Yeah.
And it was just negative. And to the point where one of the guys asked him, what is your why? And I lost it. This guy who should have known better. I'm like, mate, you're not, whatever his name is, Simon Sinek. This is a young kid who's come here.
We don't need the fluffy crap.
And stop the bullshit. Like, just if you're not interested, don't hammer this guy. And that's one thing that I think in all the mentoring stuff I try to do is just not be critical, even if you don't like the idea or whatever, like the person, just give them something to go away. Because anyone that's, in my view, that's having a crack is worth helping for, whatever. Just listen.
In a 5-minute conversation, give a little bit of advice or something.
And so that was my first experience with somebody externally. So, I was like, well, no, that's not fair. And this poor guy came away feeling battered. And was very then sheepish for the 2, 3, 4. But then when I said, no, the next one, I'm going to pick the people so that I'm going to know them, going to give them more of a, context on the opportunity. And then it went fine. And, now he's on his second startup now, or third. So he's well on his way. But I think that, and I talk to other founders, that experience is common where there seems to be a negativity of, let's just shoot the person or the idea down. Without asking the right questions.
But even then, like in my experience, the guy was asking me questions, but I didn't give the answers in the way he was waiting to hear them. And so I didn't have the context that he wanted, like, all right, I'm going to want a dot point brief on this, and this. And he's asking me questions. And I'm trying to build a relationship and kind of like explain things. He goes, how much do you want to exit with? I'm like, my business partner and I, we have a joke of like, there's this Norwegian IT company that sold for 500 million. So we joked that it's 300 G-Wagons each. And I think that's hilarious, right? And that's a great kind of like, oh, well, there's a bit of fun there, you know? And he's like, I don't care about that, what they did. I want to know what you want to exit with. I'm like, well, you asked. I'm starting to, like, if we had said the call, all right, you have 5 words to use for every answer, maybe I might have changed my approach.
Yeah.
So we were just on the wrong foot to begin with. And I guess like one way I've heard to maybe not recover from that, but like when you get into an investment thing, and I have used it successfully in a meeting. It wasn't an investment for me, it was for a non-profit, but we got like 4 or 5 meetings into it. And then something else came up for the guy, and so he went off somewhere else. But the first question I sort of asked was, what have you invested in previously that's gone really well and why? And then what have you invested in poorly or that's gone, you know, poorly, and why did that go bad?
Yeah.
And then basically at the end of the presentation, you go, why do you think we would go well or poorly? And like put it onto them to be that they're responsible for this as well. It's not just putting money on the black at the casino and walking away.
Yeah.
They actually are involved in the success.
Yeah. And I think it's a very good point. It's asking the investor, A, what have they done to validate their success, but also what are you also going to do to support me? The money's great, but have you got contacts? Have you got leads? Have you got opportunities? All that type of stuff. Whereas some people are happy to put the money and walk away. Some have got that resource pool that can help you. And you know, with our own experience, gentlemen had money, but not really the contacts to help us. So it was kind of okay, fine. And we didn't know what we didn't know at that point. So it was what it was. But with the companies now, we're very specific on if the investor is there just to provide money, probably not the right person for us, because we need people that can really help, but are also a bit passionate about the business as well. You know, it's not just a financial thing, which is probably why we moved right away from VCs and private equity, because to me, they're just too focused on numbers, and that's their model and that's what they do. But when you look at their success rates of 2 in 5, you go, well, there's a reason why you're not 4 in 5, because you're only looking at one thing. And that's another frustrating point that I have with a VC, when they would just ask specific questions where they're all asking from the same hymn sheet. Well, you know, what's your TAM and what's this? And that's well, it doesn't matter. This idea could be the greatest idea in the world. We don't even know what the total accessible market is.
And what if you create a new market that doesn't exist?
And you know, I don't know. I could be right, I could be wrong, but to me, it's about.
I think that's a very valuable answer. Is I don't know. You know, in intelligence school, if you don't say I don't know, you actually fail the assessment. So you have to be able to say what is and what is not. If you keep trying to sell something that isn't real or doesn't exist, look at Elizabeth Holmes, raised billions of dollars and then eventually went to jail for fraud. If you go to and you know, like in the military context, if you say it's this, and you start bullshitting, then they commit resources into an area that can cost people's lives. So I don't know is a very powerful answer. Don't be, you know, feel like you're not good enough because you don't know something. That's actually really good.
Exactly right.
Go and research it.
Yep.
I have had another experience where I was talking to one guy he talked to me about VC. I think we had a first chat, and then on the second chat, he was like, all right, so you're going to have to pay me for some consulting first. I'm like, that's kind of not how this works. Like, we're going to invest in each other in the first instance. Like, I'm going to invest time showing you what it is that I need. You're going to invest time assessing me. And then when you do invest the money, I'm going to invest the effort. And then combined outcome is a win for both of us. So I don't think it should be paid in the first instance. Maybe if I'm going to ask you to come along to do some investment, I might pay for dinner. I might pay for golf. I might do something to kind of like woo you into the conversation. But that doesn't say, you know, that now becomes I feel like that's the bait and switch. Oh, come for me for investment, but by the way, you have to pay me.
No, that's not right.
No. It just seems a little bit duplicitous.
It does.
And there's a lot of room for maybe not scammers, but you know, like, you know, definitely changing the game or changing the rule. I have heard of quite a few investors that have been screwed on the exit. Sorry, not investors, founders. So a friend of mine built a software company in the tradie space, got an exit, got some money, but something happened at the end that meant that he didn't have anywhere near the exit value. Basically, the investor went, "Oh, I'm just taking over, and I'll pay you this much to go away." How do founders protect against that? I mean, obviously, you're coming at it from both sides. So I guess what my goal is to try and articulate what a fair outcome is for all.
Yeah.
Both have to win, otherwise no one wins, or
Yeah.
someone is massively taken advantage of.
Yeah. I mean, I think as a founder, in my view, you should always make sure your co-founders or whatever group, you should always make sure you have 51% and control of the board. Now, I think that's just good business sense. It might seem right or wrong or whatever, but to me, it's like if you've started this and taken all the risk, you should generally have the ability to control the destiny.
Yeah.
And you do get obviously investors that do know the tricks and they can, manipulate things. But I think if you have a pretty robust shareholder agreement where you do have things like drag along and tag along rights, then it avoids them being difficult or saying, okay, well, I'm going to insert myself in the process, even though I've got 1% say and want 99% of the outcome. So you protect yourself in legal agreements. Not as much as you don't want to do that as a founder. I think that's a lot of mistakes I see with founders. They won't spend the money on the legals initially, whereas I think having watertight agreements so that everyone's signed off and making sure they're signed. The amount of companies I work with where they've got shareholder agreements that are not signed, that don't stand up in court is quite scary. So making sure everybody's got that piece of paper, they know that everyone's signed, when it was done, who's doing what, who can do this, who can do that.
I had we had a third founder at the start, and 4 months in, he claimed he was going to be the CMO. Nothing actually happened, and he actually decided to leave because I'm like trying to get a website up. I'm trying to make stuff happen. He's like, it has to be perfect, and I think there's a bit of perfectionism in there, which prevented it from going ahead. But we ended up quitting because he's like, no one listens to me. The team. I'm like, well, I say, hey, can we do this? And someone else will do it, even on the website. And he kind of felt that he was being ignored. But I'm like, have you gone and spent time with the staff? Have you built a relationship with them? Have you asked them to do something? Make sure they have everything they need. Follow up and check. Like these are, leadership principles I find natural because of army background. But then, for him, he supposedly came from a large corporate background, which I would assume there would be some of those skills. And ultimately he left, and then we had a shareholder agreement which said everybody put in $5,000 each. When you leave, if you leave within 2 years, you only get out what you put in. And so that was kind of fair, that no one kind of like, if you have an early success, that someone doesn't pull their money out and go, I'm done. And that we gave him his $5,000 back. And then he was like, oh, well, what about all of the salary? And I gave him all the export of the financials and acquitted that. And then he sent me an email later with like hey, it shows your company made $2 million. This is like Dun and Bradstreet, but they do like random assessments, and so that's not proven, and it's just like from general data. And so on the actual screenshot, it said this is not verified and cannot be supported. And I sent that back to him with that circled, and they kind of killed that disagreement. But it saved a more lengthy, frustrating conversation.
Yeah, and you touched on an important point in terms of making sure who you're in business with is almost as important as the business itself. In terms of, obviously you're getting to know them and understanding, but again, people change very quickly, or someone's partner can make a massive difference to the business. And I know you can't account for everything, but it's something that I guess people should consider and really think through. Who are you getting in business with? Because things can change very quickly. And I think if you've got your founders, co-founders backs always, and I think of the last probably 14 years, I'd say that with our business, we have disagreements, but we've got each other's backs, and we've never had each situations where one wants to leave and the other wants to stay, and it's everyone's kind of right. We're all in this for the long haul. We know this is not going to be an instant turn, overnight success. And 10 years on, you go, okay, fine. Now we know what success looks like, but everyone's still hungry to get to the next level, or want to improve themselves, improve the business. And I think that's really important. Whereas I see so many startups fail at the beginning because they're just fighting for no reason, or you've got an individual that has expectations like your chap more than where he's at. And that's the other thing as well. In a startup, I believe that you're skills and experience get magnified 1,000,000 times. So you can work someone out straight away. Somebody says they've done all that. Okay, well, now do it, because you've now got a day to do that.
Yeah.
Not 3 weeks and not
Yeah.
4 people to do it for you. You've got to do it
All
now.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is another one I think is important, that people have to prove themselves quickly. You know, and to me, it's like your skills and your experience get you into a startup, but your attitude and behavior keep you in there. And again, we've seen, and I see it a lot, where, you know, the startup that's turning over a couple of $100,000, if the founder then he seems to think he's the next Steve Jobs. You're like, hey, you haven't got anywhere yet. So what are you? And then they're
Be humble. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the same problem, because this guy was all about the C-suite acronyms, like CFO, CMO, CTO. I'm like, we've got to turn over our first, sod of soil first. Like we're scraping from the bottom. Let's work like a startup.
Yeah.
And anyway, the current business partner is, I was fortunate enough to be in the army with him. We sort of went our separate ways, found each other again 5 years later. And like I can not talk to him for 3 months and come back together, and we'll have had the same thoughts, done the same things, both been working together, like in our sort of areas, and I'm very fortunate in that regard. But I can definitely see, I've seen a lot of really bad ones. One in particular, it was like an abusive relationship, where one was a pure narcissist and the other guy was virtually not heard at all. He ran all the systems and the back end, and I was working with him. And then the other guy's sycophantic asshole, thinks only about himself. They literally went to marriage counseling effectively for each other. But nothing stuck, nothing happened, nothing changed. And the narcissistic dude just cannot be changed and cannot make any other kind of, can't make a middle ground or something like that. I can't really think of a time where I've really disagreed with my business partner. Like we might go, I think this, he thinks that. And we're like, okay. You sort of just go with it because that other person has more domain knowledge or something like that. But other than that, I would say you are very lucky if you find a very good partner. And I did not find one on my first try. I've probably gone through 3 till I found a really good one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I look, obviously there's an element of luck in it, in terms of
Oh,
who
absolutely,
you meet and how you do it. And
absolutely.
I've heard great relationships turn sour very quickly and not great ones turn out really well. So it's difficult. But I think if you can have that open and honest, transparent conversation, then you kind of know where you're at, where you want to go. And I think that's as important as the business itself, in terms of aligning the founders to go, well, if one founder wants to exit for 500 million, the other one wants to exit for 5 million, well, then you're not aligned in that regard. But I think also, like, we meet every year and we go away for 3-4 nights somewhere in the world where all three of us just don't work on the business. It's around what we want to do and how we want to improve our own lives together as partners. Obviously, we've got a third partner now. And again, very good alignment between the three of us, different stages of life. One's got young kids, one's got kids that have gone, mine are kind of in between. And we're all got different, but we kind of come together on, this is what I want to do next year, this is what I want to do, what do you think? Bang, 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 and we align and then execute, and that's it. I think in some ways it's kind of helped that I stepped out of the business, because obviously I was leading everything. But actually, going back to your title, it was funny, when people say, oh, chairman, that's great. Like, mate, I still buy the toilet paper. It's not that sexy. Yeah. It means nothing.
For ages, I just put like CRM consultant, which is kind of like what we do. So for us, that's more frontline worker. Because I wanted to be in the conversations. Recently, I've put CEO on there just because of the kind of people we want to talk to and where our company's at now. But I feel wrong. I don't like putting founder on there. I don't like, on like LinkedIn or whatever. I feel like being more of a doer can sometimes be good. And I guess you almost have to have that multi-personality, like who are you going to speak to? Who do you need to be for that person, for that interaction, for that relationship? So in terms of who you take investment from, who should you not take investment from? Who's the wrong person?
My view is that family and friends can get quite tricky very, very easily. And not for any right or wrong reason, but people have different expectations and you obviously have an emotional connection to them, so it makes it hard. So I would say if you can avoid it if you can.
Because you can't escape them.
You can't, and they're there part of your life, and if they're 1% or 500%, whatever it is.
Yeah. How's that $500,000 of mine going?
Correct.
Or
And
50,000.
it's that throwaway comment, but you know you're wearing that on your chest, and it just weighs on you always.
And then you don't want to go to family barbecues. You don't want to.
And you avoid.
Yeah.
Whereas I think you made a really good point in that, almost interviewing that individual. What have you done before?
Yeah.
What sort of returns have you got? So then you have an expectation or an understanding at least of what they've done, what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So it's almost a two-way process. So really getting to know, and that's what, in our own business, what we've done over the last couple of years is, we've probably got 4 or 5 VCs, PEs that have constantly wanted to invest in us, but we've got to know them now. So, we might, play golf with them 4 times, been to dinner 6 times, but now we know, right, who we really want to work with, because we know the people that haven't left. They've got a good, I guess, team of analysts behind them. And, we also didn't know what we wanted. We thought we just wanted money, but no, we actually want the contacts for here. We also want someone to support us in finance. And so it takes time to unravel exactly what, these people do. And I think the other part as well is what sort of, personality you want to deal with. Do you want somebody who's got, can put your arm around you and say, look, don't worry, we can help here? Or do you want that person that's a bit more, kind of not aggressive, but, very defined and going from stage 1 to 2 to 3, and we're just going to go in that journey, and they just smash through all of that. Again, it's up to the individual, how quickly do you want to get to the goal, and how much do you want to be in control versus not? Because obviously I have founders that want to control everything, and ones that are happy to kind of go with the flow. So I think trying to match that right investor to the individual, I think, is pretty key. So, I'm obviously lucky in that I've had that experience, so I'm not going to put an aggressive guy with somebody that I know needs that kind of warm and fuzzy feeling. But again, that just takes time. And I think from what I've seen, when you see pitch events, you have people pitching to 4 or 5 VCs. How on earth can you get a picture for what they're like, and the same on the other side? And I think people sign up to agreements far too quickly, whereas I see it as a dating process. So let's get to one phase, and then let's get to the next phase, and when you're really comfortable, then pull the trigger. Because capital isn't hard to get, in my view, if you've got a good product or a good business or a good vision. Because even what we do in the business might not be what we think is the greatest business to start with, but if we align with the founder, we know the second, third, fourth one is going to be where we might make money. So we look at it in that regard. So we invest in the person, not so much the business. The business has got to stack up, but we're like, okay, does that individual align with our values? Do they align with the way that we think? And
you'll have de-risked yourself by that point. So you know that they're got the sort of resolve to keep going. They've learned along the way. And that, I think that is big in the US, and it is not big in Australia. It's like, once you've failed at something, you're tarnished.
100% correct.
And I think that, failing is rapid learning. So, and there's millions of memes, and everybody's said it on all the podcasts, but, the having learnt something of what not to do, the pain of why not to do it is probably just as, if not more valuable than having sat down in a class and seen it on a whiteboard and go, oh, yeah, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But then you go, let's avoid that at all costs because it sucks.
Yep. No, you're exactly right.
That's probably way more valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, you almost have tall poppy syndrome here, but people are almost not willing, but maybe they are, willing you to fail. So, I told you so, that was never going to work, or you guys are idiots, why have you done that? Whereas in America, failing is like a badge of honor. People are more honest and transparent about it. This is my 3rd startup. I haven't made a cent, but this one I think is going to work, and this is why. And you go, okay, yeah, cool.
That's experience.
That is. And you look at it and you go, wow. Whereas here, if I look at a 3rd-time founder, you'd be like, oh, no, I'm not going to touch that person because it's just not, it's kind of not cricket. But it's, it's a very different, I suppose, culture outside of the US, in my view, and the entrepreneurship over there is embraced. Entrepreneurship is completely
and there's so much more capital available.
Correct. The capital is there.
You can easily get $50 million, whereas here you're like, oh yeah, we're going to, like, you watch Shark Tank and they go, we're going to invest in you. I'll give you $30,000 for 30% of your company.
Exactly.
And over there they're like, we'll give you $5 million for 30%.
Yeah.
5% of your company.
And the speed of which deals are done over there compared to here is very different. So from our experience, our startup to bank deposit was 3 days. in terms of decision, I want to
Yeah,
invest.
wow.
3 days the money was in. I'm like, that would never have happened here.
Yeah,
There'd have been
yeah.
legals, there'd have been that. Now that gentleman trusted us and we trusted
Yes.
him. So it was
Yeah.
like, let's just get it in. You need the money. We'll work out the rest later. Whereas
Yeah,
that
wow.
would just never happen. Now I'm sure under ASIC rules that's changed in the last 10 years. You probably can't do that. But
Yeah.
and that's what I think we've had these discussions in that I encourage any entrepreneur, whatever your idea is, even if it's locally based in Australia or wherever else, go to America. Just go and see the landscape, see the scale, and just open your eyes to what else is out there, because Australia is, it's still a big market with 30 million people or whatever, but it's not the be all and end all. I
No.
always, if you can create a business here and turn $1, you're 100 times more likely to 1,000x that in America.
Well, I think their economy is, we're 1/14 of their population. So it's a very, very different game. So I think going into, globalization, let's talk more about that. So how have you found that? Like, how did you get over there? What was all of the swings and roundabouts of that?
Yeah. I think when we started in America, one of the biggest challenges were we didn't understand the culture. I think we might have talked about that in a previous podcast, where we just didn't understand the American side of things, and that people were very willing to take meetings, which was a surprise to us. But we thought taking a meeting meant we were going to get
Committing
sale.
to action, yeah.
But it wasn't. It was they're just getting to know you and understand you. Now that we know that they, and I'm sure it's the same here as it's the same in the UK and other parts of the world, that you've got to like, trust, but in America, they're so focused on that trust. And going back to your point on the titles,
Yes.
they would only deal with me for a decision. And that was it. Even though that there were capable CEOs, general managers, I didn't even understand sometimes what they were doing, but they would just go, okay, if Anil's there, fine, let's go make sure he's at the meeting and he can make the decision, and then we're happy to do it.
Yeah, right.
So that was, again, a learning curve, in that if I wasn't in the room initially, nothing happened.
Yeah.
As soon as I started turning up to these meetings, they were like, okay, cool. And then they got the trust of me. Then they would deal with the general manager. But before that, they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Now, we're very lucky, and when we had Tony, that he had that credibility. So there was some of that was gone. But that's a big thing. But I think the other part with expanding to a global footprint is also not listening to the noise as well in the background, in the people saying you'll never ever make it in America unless you go and move there, and 10 years you will need to understand it, and then you'll start making money. Nonsense. At least in my experience. We got there, we fumbled our way through, we didn't know what we didn't know, but you very quickly learn what's right, what's not right. But for us, it wasn't an option to move to America, so it wasn't going to happen. I was happy to travel in and out. I think we got the same result we would have done anyway. So.
Well, that's the same for me. Like, I'm not got kids in school, not going to go all the way over and rent them out. I know you can. Obviously, political situation, and it's a bit tumultuous, and you don't always necessarily feel safe over there. But I was there last month, and so were you. And then everything was fine and safe. I didn't feel concerned at all. But again, like, going there, you realize just how many people and how big it is. Why would Americans go anywhere else? They don't need to come to Australia.
No.
Having said that, I did go to a Australian Texas Chamber of Commerce, and there was quite a few Australians there, obviously, who are over there, building sort of relationship with each other, and also trying to understand all of the the market and to do better. Like, many of them have been there for a year or so, working on their visas. One lady had a caravan that she was exporting from Australia to the US. Now, the reason why that was significant, because obviously they got their Winnebagos, they got their big, 5-star hotels on wheels. But in Australia, we're big on our 4-wheel drive camping. And so that was a niche that's not well tapped. So, over there, the bigger the car, the more luxurious, great. But there is still a small culture of going 4-wheel driving and over rocks and whatever. And so their trailer hooks up with like 2 little linkages. And so you can be on this kind of angle or like turning and twisting, and nothing is available, or very few are available like that. And ours are quite minimalist. So over there, the culture is everything is bigger, more. Whereas in Australia, we're a little bit like, all right, let's try to be a little bit efficient. We've only got so much resources. Things are expensive. And so there's this compact thing that's now popular over there in a small niche. And I think that by targeting that one little niche, you got much better impact than if you try to go against the big guys. But that's the same in virtually any market. So being unique.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's key in terms of having a unique idea, having that, I guess, belief in what you have, but being a little bit different. That's the other part as well, is you don't need to be able to change the world or change the industry with this product. A 1% difference, you've still got a business there. It's 1% better than everything else there. You've got a market.
Oh, there's millions of people in that 1%.
Correct.
It's heaps.
And that's what I think people forget. They're looking for that massive disruption, Uber type idea where there's still plenty of money to be obtained by just finding a good product or a good service and making it better than anyone else.
It's like if you come up with left-handed screwdrivers, like there's a small percentage of people that would probably love that. I mean, obviously that's a dumb example, but the point is there is a niche for a market that don't like something else.
Yeah. And simple things. Like I remember one of our products, when we came up with this UI and tablet-based solution for frontline workers, we didn't understand why certain cultures wouldn't use it. And we were like, well, why do they not use it? And what we found was, we then actually obviously asked them, but amongst African American, I think there's a very high percentage that are colorblind, and all our colors were green and red. So they couldn't work out the difference. So when we changed it, they used it. But how would you know that without embracing that culture or getting yourself and asking the question? And similarly, when multi-language translation in those days was non-existent. I think Bing Translate was the first thing to come out, so we had to manually do it. So literally everything was manually. But once we had manual translation into Urdu, Hindi, then people used it. But again, something you would never know. That's good. You just wouldn't know that. The reason why. You have this grand plan. We're just going to roll this out to all these people, and let's say generally a white population, no problem, they use it, but the others, struggled, or there was a reason why they wouldn't use it. So for us to figure that out, you can only do that when you're on the ground or, people that are that close to it.
There's so many things that people won't tell you. Like they're not going to...
Exactly, no.
If they can't see the app, they can't find the feedback form to give you the feedback, that they can't submit feedback.
Yeah. No, I remember one story where we were, I think when BY Bring Your Own Device had come in, and people would obviously be bring it in, and we would get phone calls saying the app's just disappeared, your product's rubbish.
I was curious why you said that, and you expanded the acronym, but BYD is now a car.
Yeah, I know.
So,
I know,
no, that was good. I just thought of that.
And then you'd find out that, and then they'd bring back, say, I'm really sorry, I brought my wife's phone, or stuff like that. But again, our support team were getting inundated with all these calls. Well, why are people complaining? What's wrong? Why are they losing the out? Why is, it's just a simple thing where they brought the wrong device. But I think the other massive thing that we learned on the cultural side was finding leaders that were completely aligned with yourself, and that took us a long time, and we burned through millions getting to that point. So I think we were almost 2 million in the hole before we'd even started really growing, because and in my view, it was just a people problem. We just picked the wrong people, not necessarily from a skills base, but they didn't understand either our product, us, or the market. And so I think spending a lot more time on that. So we actually started to use personality profiling tools as well. I think we used Facet 5, which gave us an insight into individuals, how they behaved, how they would operate under stress, under extreme growth. And that's how we started to find the right team. And then obviously Tony's taken it to the next level, where he's built a team around him, but again, using similar principles to make sure everyone's aligned. Because, we did this exercise where, Neil and myself were aligned, pretty much when we started to map all the staff, and this was initially, there was a complete misalignment. So now I'd say it's a lot better, but just something.
I've always been skeptical of those things. And, you got Myers-Briggs, Kearsey, DISC, and all of those sorts of things. And I think that, for me, I spent a lot of time with a lot of people over a lot of years, and I generally have a good sort of read on people, I would think. And so I think where those platforms or those methodologies come into play is when you're disconnected from the process. Like in a management hiring structure, you need to create some process that's somewhat aligned, where you kind of know it because you know it. You don't know it because you can write it into words.
Yeah.
Somebody else's needs to be able to read those words, understand that structure, and apply that thinking. Whereas I would probably just do it naturally. So I can understand why that would be valuable. Particularly, I think, once you get to a certain scale where you got people hiring people that you're not involved in, that's probably the biggest risk and the biggest point at which those assessment tools are very useful. So, and like that, I'd say that's what we're getting to, where there's people I've not met after they've worked with us for like the first, month or whatever. Or, there's plenty of customers I've never met before. That's a scary thing. Going from that transition from being the leader in a business, doing absolutely everything, to being the person who's kind of just got a little bit of a finger on the pulse of things that are going on, but you're not there. You're not in the same room. You're not having the discussions. You can't hear all the nuance, and you have to give it to somebody else. And that's a scary step. Yeah. So where do most founders get stuck?
My view, the big one that I see is, to me, 1 million is the magic number, at least to know this is a business that's gonna, I guess,
wasn't an accident.
No, and it's going to go places, but often getting to 1 million's hard, in terms of, you might get 300, then get to 800, back to 600, then you hit that mill. When you hit that mill mark, then it's like, well, okay, right, now we're here. Yeah. Do you have your processes in place? Do you have succession plans and all those things that good corporate people would have had and had the money and the time to develop? Generally, I find startups, including my own, we don't have any of that. Yeah. Succession plan, even with staff going, well, where do I go next? I don't know. Unless I die, you're not getting my role, or something like that. So
you're going to build it from scratch, like, in big corporates, it's already established.
Everything, Whereas you are learning on the fly, and I think sometimes having that half a day or a day every couple of weeks to be strategic, to say, well, all right, once we get to 1 million, we need to look at that. How much capital are we going to need to get to the next point? Yeah. And I think we were very good at that in the last probably 5 years, but in the beginning it wasn't. We were just winging it, in terms of, we got to 1 million, then we got to 2, then we got to 3, then got, whatever. Yeah. But there wasn't a lot of, okay, well, now we're here. Why is it falling apart at the account manager level? Well, we've got no process, guys.
But you probably don't have that headspace. Like at that point, you're in the thick of everything.
No.
And you probably don't have enough, probably volume of the same problem to go, there's a trend.
Yeah.
So, sometimes it might be, for us, one thing that happens very sporadically would be we have a client gets acquired. They then stop working with us because the acquirer uses a different product or wants to go down a different path. Now, maybe there's a procedure that we need to implement. We've probably only encountered it 2 or 3 times, but in a large company like Telstra, for example, is providing services to millions of customers. Potentially they've got a whole department dedicated to it, and they've got a set procedure and they've got policies and blah, 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 blah. But when you first come across it, you're like, holy crap, I've got to figure so much stuff out. What are the legalities? Can they break contract? How do we handle this? Who do we talk to? Like, that's a huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the big things is founders don't get or look for a support network early enough. Yeah. In that they have a board. And again, that board is probably formulated based on who shouted the loudest initially, and they're probably the wrong people. Yep. Generally, I'm not saying in all cases, but for me, if you have a board and it's already established, find an advisory board of people that like and trust, and that have, that are going to look out for you as well. So you can have those conversations in that, I rang up my old boss from Shell, ended up being a global CEO, and by complete chance from the UK, retired in Broadbeach. So we obviously got on, this was 20 years ago, and I rang him and said, mate, would you join an advisory board? I really need your help. I'm happy to pay you this. And he's like, no, I'm not going to charge you. You're not going to pay me anything. I'll help you. So I could ring him and go, mate, I'm in the shit here. I don't know what to do here. This person's done this. And he's like, okay, just take a step back, do that, think about this. And that stuff is invaluable. That and I think some founders just end up going in a box of, I've got to sort this out. I've got to fix everything. And you can't. Again, if you have a business partner, that helps. I had Neil, and again, Neil, we're very similar in that our values and what we're trying to do, but we're very different in that I'm very growth, he's very steady, and he's very
That's a
calming.
perfect pairing.
Yeah. So when I'm ready to jump, 9-10 years ago, when we're about to run out of money, couldn't do payroll, I'm about to jump off a balcony at LAX, and He's like, mate, we'll be fine. I'm like, what do you mean we can be fine? We're fucked. He was like, no, we'll get it. And, you know, just that
Yeah.
comment, "will be fine," stuck with me. And then the next day I woke up and thought, okay, right, what are we going to do to get this sorted out? And we did get it sorted out, obviously. But that helped so much. Whereas if I was on my own and didn't have any, I don't know what would have happened at that point, because I was just getting myself into a spiral of downward thinking, and you just don't have that. And I encourage all my founders that we invest in, reach out. If you've got a problem, reach out. I might not be able to fix it, but I guarantee we'll know someone that can help you, or have your support network around you. Because, you know, as you know, and as a founder, you know, you take everything into your family life, everything to your friends' life. You know, you kind of want that support network where people, I think, generally want to help, but I think founders are unwilling to ask for that help. And the amount of people that I think are willing to give their time to help is significant.
I think it's someone you have to want to listen to, not
Correct.
told
Everyone's got
because-
advice and everyone's got opinions. But
Exactly.
it's people that you respect that have done, and that's kind of what I tried to do, at least in our business, was find somebody in each industry that I knew that could help us, A, get the contacts, but B, had a vested interest in myself, or, you know, we had a relationship where they would be honest. And, you know, I didn't want yes men. Whereas again, I see a lot of founders surround themselves with yes men, in that, you know, it's great to be singing Kumbaya, but if the business is going in the wrong direction, I want someone to tell me, or say, anyway, you're being an idiot. Don't do that. Do this.
We kind of said before, I think the perfect pairing is someone who's like go-getter, and then someone who's a bit more conservative, because I liken it to like a person walking a dog down a path. The dog wants to go everywhere and like drags the person off the path, and discovers new ground and new things. But the person wants to stay on the path and pulls the dog back a little bit. But both of them go further together. Both of them stay ultimately on track and get to where they want to go.
Yeah.
So I think both are very, and discover new things along the way.
Yep.
So I don't know. I'm trying to work on my analogies. I think that's pretty good so far.
That's good.
Well, look, I think we've covered quite a bit. You know, I think there's a lot in there for anyone who gets stuck, and you know, I think it's always good to talk through things, and appreciate you spending time to talk with me today. Is there anything you want to leave listeners with before we run?
No, but thank you for the opportunity, and yeah, great to have a chat. My piece of advice that I always give to anyone is, in business, relationships equal money. Everything else in business is commentary. And I always come back to that no matter what.
For everything else, there's MasterCard.
Correct. Yeah.
Need a t-shirt or something. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.